Okay, so this is now dry. A fairly simple way of telling that it's dry is to put it on your wrist, and if it's cool then there's likely to be a little bit of moisture still in there. If it's obviously if you've had it on a radiator or something, then let it cool down first and reach room temperature. But that's quite a good way of telling that it's dry, and the important thing is that it must not have any moisture in it when you fire it, because the moisture can cause the clay to bubble and distort, so we need to ensure that it's dry before we fire it. Now that it's dry, we can refine it, so we can use the emery paper which I spoke to you about before, and you can cut this up obviously, but you can just refine the edges with it, smooth any little rough bits down. And another way you can do it is if you have a craft knife, obviously being very careful, you can actually just scrape little bits of the clay off to tidy the edges that way. And make sure that you save all of these pieces, because we can reconstitute that silver clay. So to neaten the hole up, you can use the knife quite easily as well by just scraping gently round the inner part of the hole. If you wanted to, you could also rub it gently on the emery paper to get the back flat. So let's just flatten the back a little bit there. This is fragile still, so it's a little bit like a biscuit. If you could imagine, if I snapped that now, it would be like snapping a biscuit in half, because it's not yet fired, it's simply dried. Okay, so now that we've refined it and we're quite happy with it, the next thing to do is to fire it. So when you're ready to fire, prepare a timer set for 5 minutes, also a bowl of cold water, and either a pair of small tweezers to pick up the pendant with, but it's a little less fiddly to pick up the mesh and tip the pendant into the water after it's fired. Place the mesh securely onto a gas hob and turn the gas on so that you can see where the hottest parts will be when the burner is lit. Then for safety's sake, turn off the burner, but keep in mind where the red parts are. And then you can place your dried silver clay onto one of the hottest parts and relight the gas. Now you'll see it's beginning to heat up the mesh again, and so that means that the heat will transfer up into the silver clay as well. You sometimes get a little bit of smoke, and now you can see, hopefully, the flame, which is actually the binder, burning off the silver clay, and it's at this moment that this turns into silver, and that's when you also press the timer for 5 minutes. This now has to be heating for 5 minutes so that all of the particles of silver can fuse together properly. That's why there's about 10% shrinkage when you fire silver clay, because the binder burns away and the particles fuse together. Okay, so that's now had 5 minutes, so I'll switch the timer off, turn off the gas, most important, and just tip the silver clay pendant into the water. And it does fizzle a little bit, so don't worry about the sound, that's just it cooling off as it hits the cold water.